Hello, 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 everyone. It's good to be here with you guys today. Stefan, Williamson, I can see you online. Rafael, Safich, Mia, Maria Camacho. Okay, guys, let's get started. So, let me just get here. Good. Okay. All right, Design Leadership Season 2, Firesession, the journey of design maturity. Thank you for being online. If you are here today, if you are listening to this Firesession, just welcome. Just put on in the comments where you come from. We would love to know where you come from. So here at Echoes, we are an independent global desirable futures lab. Here at Echoes Desirable Futures Lab, we're helping business create value and innovate for good. We also have the Echoes School of Design Thinking, helping people in organizations master the innovation mindsets, skills, and tools. Our purpose is to foster the next generation of design leaders worldwide. And we are the only independent innovation lab, part of the Global Design Thinking Alliance. And we're very, 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 very proud to be part of that. Everything we do through design. We believe in the power of design, and we combine design with business to transform organizations and societies. Well, Design Leadership Season 3 is coming with a 10 weeks program. You're going to learn a lot over this 20 weeks program, and over your learning experience, be ready to grow and become a memorable design leader. It's an experience we will go through the necessary abilities in each area necessary in design leadership. That means you and the others, you and the systems, you and yourself, and you and the products and services. Already confirmed to Design Leadership Season 3, we have Bruce Moll, Stephen Gates, Mark Stickdon, Mark Stickdon is a new one. He is one of the authors of the Service Design Thinking, which is an amazing book. And we also have Emiliano Chileni and Juliana Prosepio and Ricardo Ruffo. It's an exclusive program for design and innovation leaders. It's going to start on the 10th of October, finishing on the 14th of December. The global master classes will be on a 9 a.m. Sydney on Tuesdays or 10 p.m. Sydney on Mondays. We also have local workshops they are holding on Wednesday evenings in your region, and they're going to be 2.5 hours of duration. Oh, design leadership, Firesession. Here you go. You have me, Erico. I'm the design lead for APAC and EMEA here at Echoes. We have today Stefan Williamson, which is Strategy and Innovation Director at Digital Arts Network New Zealand, and also Maria Camacho, which is a Senior Manager in Innovation and Design and Strategy at Frog. So today we're going to be talking about the journey of design maturity. This is the question that everyone want to know. When we're going to find that we got mature enough to perform design all over the planet? We don't know. We all want to know that. So thank you for coming, Stefan, Maria Camacho. I'm going to get the first round of conversation by maybe sharing your background as a design leader and how you see the design maturity evolving. Should we start with Maria Camacho?
Yes, if I may.
The floor is all yours, Maria Camacho. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Very glad to be here. My background is so long. I mean, not long because I've done too much, because I've lived so long, but don't even count the years. So I started as a Bachelor of Industrial Design. I then went on to study postgraduate on packaging design, and I studied a Master of Design Leadership. And then many years later, I studied a PhD in design thinking, and that was finished 2 years ago. So that's been very recent. And so that's my educational background. Are you looking at for other background, Erico,
Well,
or is it just the education?
wherever you think is fair enough to explain yourself on as a design leader and in the Maturity Maria Camacho, just feel free. It's a fire session. It's a free talk.
Okay, I'm gonna let Stefan tell us about his background first, and then we can start with the design maturity, I think.
Boom. Stefan, welcome for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Stefan.
Hola, Maria. Hi. Buenas tardes. Really nice to meet you. Yeah, that's a great question. My background. So first, I just have to say yes. Hello to everyone. My name is Stefan. I'm not precious about the way that it's pronounced. Stefan, whatever. I'm originally from Cape Town in South Africa, but I now live in Wellington, in New Zealand, which will soon be called, hopefully, Aotearoa. But New Zealand, yes. And where I am right now, it's 10 o'clock at night. So forgive me if I'm a little bit sleepy. And English is my second language, so you might find that I start, talking a bit of nonsense. We'll just go with the flow. So I guess my background, I think it's really interesting because I think Maria and I actually come from very, very different backgrounds in this regard. In that I actually really didn't study design at all. Like I really wanted to when I was young, and I wanted to go and study interior design, and my dad said, no, get a real job. And so he made me go and study economics, which wasn't nearly as much fun, and political science. But yes, so I did an undergrad in what we call PPE, which is politics, philosophy, and economics, which I didn't know what to do. And then I ended up teaching English. I moved to Taiwan. I met my wife, who's from Spain. We moved to Spain. I continued with the English. I went back and studied education, thinking I'd become a teacher. And then that didn't really grab my attention. And then I got into sort of digital, I suppose, in the broader sense, through copywriting, actually. And then ended up doing a bit of sort of a postgrad in development studies, which was political stuff. And then eventually did an executive MBA, which I finished last year. So everything, well, not everything, but a lot of stuff except design. And I really feel like it's time that I should probably like educate myself a bit more in that. So yes, absolutely. In awe, I think, and in appreciation of the perspective that you can bring tonight, Maria. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for me.
Wonderful. Stefan, I think your profile and mine are really different from the background, but apparently for what we do right now, nowadays, it tends to be quite similar. And I really like that about design, the fact that you don't have to be a designer from a background to nowadays feel like that you can do design, or you can be a design thinker. And that's one of the things that I see pretty much evolving a lot regarding design maturity. We used to say 20, 30 years ago, it's like, if you want to be a design manager or work with management on design within an organization, you have to have a design background. And I would have been probably one of those who would have said, like, Anna, yeah, you have to be a designer. But I think things have evolved quite a bit, and there are so many ways that you can learn. This is really a way of thinking, yes, and some say, of course, it's a way of doing, but it's a mindset, let's say. And I would say everyone is prone to learn this later or after any other career, and anyone can learn the mindsets of design to help to bring design maturity to organizations. And that's marvelous to hear, because it's not like, oh, you have to be a designer to be able to bring design maturity to organizations. You can be anyone. And that's one of the things that, in my view, has evolved a lot from when I started as an industrial designer to today. And of course, as usual, and I always tell everyone, fighting for the value of design in organizations, it's always a struggle, always. You're always fighting for it. But the fight keeps changing, which means why? Because we do manage to gain some recognition of some kind, and then you need to go somewhere else. Because, okay, let's evolve. Now let's get this other thing, this other area of design to be recognized. So it's a different challenge. So challenges for design recognition, the value of the, for the recognition of the value of design organizations just evolves. But it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. So that's what I see across the years. How about you, Stefan?
Yeah, I think I felt it quite similar. So I must say, you know, from the point of view, I think because I don't have that longevity in design. So I think I've really been in this kind of looking at this over the last, let's say, 12 to 13 years. And I really dived into the digital side of design, right? Straight off the bat. It's been really interesting to see that happen just in the last 10, 12 years. And I think in digital, that's almost like, you know, ×5 in everything else, because things are moving so quickly. And it's felt quite interesting to see that, how initially, I think the first UX designer that I worked with, which was when I was a copywriter, and we had a small web development company outside Cape Town. We were living on a farm and we were building websites for a financial services client, a really big one, Old Mutual in London. But we were a tiny team, 6, 7 people building websites on this farm. And our UX designer was the first UX designer that I worked with, the first designer that I really worked with. And we were still he was using Photoshop to design, you know, and he'd create all the wireframes in Photoshop and then send it off to the front-end developer. And then he would sort of literally go and measure it out and see, you know, how does everything fit? And have I got enough padding here? And how many pixels is that? And to see that go from those early days, from people that were not trained in design, that were front-end developers and anthropologists and psychologists and, you know, people that studied all sorts of other things, into, I think, that space where we are now, where it's become a really a really mature discipline, things that you can, you know, obviously, as you did as well, that you can study and you can do PhDs and you can do programs in. So to see that change over time from small niche kind of early emergent practice into a really robust discipline, a robust domain, and best practice around everything, and large product teams, large in-house teams, that I think has been really interesting to see. And it's happened so quickly, which I think is really, really interesting as well. And I think something I just wanted to add to that is, I think the one side of it has been how it's happened, I think, in our client side, both in the public and the private sector. And the other side has also been how the response has been inside our consulting agencies and inside our design studios. I know we've had to evolve that as well. I think what was quite interesting is initially, I don't know if it was the same for you, Maria, but we used to do a lot of sort of project-based work. And it was more kind of like, we need some people with a specific skill set. We're going to give you a project and off you run with it. And you kind of deliver the thing by the end of it, an app or a website or something else. And that relationship has also changed over time as the design maturity has evolved of ourselves and our client organizations, where there's been much more of a request to really get to know a client business inside out, to understand their landscape, to understand what's going on, what are the factors that are impacting them, and to build that strategic relationship then in the medium and long term, rather than a singular project and you wrap it up and it's done. It was to work with them, actively identify opportunities, and then come up with solutions over time. Is that something that you found as well?
Yeah, Stefan, I think you're spot on. It's like the nature of the work you do, or you're commissioned to do, in case when you're a consultant, has evolved, which is great. Like, yes, as you say, originally, and it allows companies to take advantage of the value of design a lot more. Because originally a company would be like, on one hand, they would be contracting the website to somebody, and then on the other hand, they'll be doing the branding with someone, and then on the other hand, they'll be doing this with somebody else. And then all these disjoint outputs, right, would come up, and then the interior architecture of the shop would be done by somebody else, and the interior of a train, you know, so nothing would really come together well. And now the fact that design is really being seen as a strategic asset means that organizations say, okay, I don't need a website, I need to solve this kind of problem. And I'm going to hire this organization or a person or whatever to think about the problem and see if, yeah, I can imagine a website being their solution. Let's see if that's the case. what does the website need to solve? It's okay. And nowadays it's not like, do you need a website? Okay, it's like, what do you need your website to have that?
Well,
Erico.
no, yeah, no, I think yeah, you touching on product design, Maria, and that's a very interesting one. So my taking on that is that back in the day, we are talking about a little bit about the back in the days, yeah, and I was there. So because I started in '97, but I guess everyone started to do the product design back in the day using interface design, and on this quest of knowing why we design something or why we need to design something, on this quest of defining the why, we as designers, we came to another layers on the business, that people from another layers in the business, like the accountants, the business analysts, the CEOs, chief market officers, and everyone else, found out that they need to explain to the design what it is exactly from this holistic view. Need to explain what he needs to design, and then the design came out from this. Let's say, I don't want to say put it like that, but I'm a designer as well. But like, the designers started to stop be treated as pixel monkeys, and they started to be seen as the ones that could also help the business leaders to envision. And that's when I think, like, we found the gap, so that design went to the strategy side of things, and then and then on that we need to start to measure, and that's exactly the thing. So we jump it from one side, which is the very end bottom of the product design or whatever it is, the piece, to the strategic bits, and we have this whole gap that coming from the top of the envisioning in the strategy to the product design, that no one so far, or actually it's like, I'm not going to say the one, but not many people know how to measure, how to get the right metric to measure the design maturity. And also, it's not just that, it's also, I'm going to also put it on that as the design becomes a capability, something that everyone should be learning how to do and use the tools and the practices and the methods to do it, and how, like, it's maturing, but still a little bit foggy. I think the market's still a little bit foggy on that. So going to the session number 2, guys, how you see the design maturity and the culture in the companies nowadays, taking into consideration maybe like what I've just said.
Nowadays?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a whole array of things happening out there. I would say. Yes, you just touched on something that just got me thinking, and I got to address it. So it's the fact that one of the ways you sell design to an organization, and this is also related to a question that somebody's asking in the chat.
Yes.
And it's like, how do you elevate design maturity in a company that normally outsources all the responsibility? And so one of the best ways, of course, is to get the numbers right. Say, well, you can go and look at a lot of studies that say that if you invest this much on design at these stages, you're going to have this kind of return at this stage. Masses of studies out there that can prove that. And then the good thing from my designer point of view, the great thing is that, oh well, there's the other added value, which is you're always having a human-centered perspective as a designer, a genuine one. And now that we're all talking so much about sustainability and the planet, etc., it's always been being human-centered. It's always been about that same thing. It's been about being responsible with what maintains us alive. So the value is economic. It maintains companies alive in a very harsh competitive environment. sometimes really harsh. And it's proof that it can help with that. So that's one way that you can get the design design culture, like say, well, you need to invest in this because blah, blah. Yeah, the money is there.
Okay.
But, behind all that, you're not just investing in that. You're investing in the life of your company for the long term. Because if humans are not there, that you're not going to have a company. Yeah, I think it's a double thing that you really need to calculate that other stuff as well. And there's a lot of people trying to calculate the value of sustainability for organizations. Why do you need to invest in sustainability when it could be seen like such a grassroots thing? Like, oh, we want to keep the trees alive, and some people will say like, oh yeah.
So that's how you see, Maria Camacho, like the culture being established in companies that have high level of design maturity, let's put it like that. So companies that already have design teams and they prototyping, then innovating all the time, they already have this embedded.
Little by little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, actually, I think it's a really, really interesting question. Is it Raphael who asked this? How do you elevate design maturity in a company that normally outsources all the responsibility? I think that to me doesn't sound like a hypothetical scenario to me, Raphael. That sounds to me like something that they're actually quite close to, right? The truth is that I'm going to go back to 2017, 2018, and when I arrived in New Zealand, I worked for a technology company. Sort of a full service technology stack provider, very Microsoft focused, large sort of enterprise level government programs, etc. Company, I think that was recently acquired by Capgemini, Maria. But yeah, so very much focused on technology, right? A technology vendor kind of place. And I was hired into that team to head up the design team there. And I say design team, but it was a team of one when I arrived there. So we had probably about 140 technologists, engineers, cloud architects, infrastructure, et cetera, and one UX designer and myself. And so the question that you're asking, Rafael, was exactly the question that I had to ask myself as well. How are we going to do this? Because what was happening was any design work that came in, UX design mostly, that came in was outsourced to a partner. And so that was the question that I had to ask, what can we do about this? And I had to essentially take on my seniors and the executives of the company and take them on the journey and treat them almost as I would treat my favorite clients. To go, right, I'm going to get the information, I'm going to put a presentation deck together, and I'm going to try and make it relevant to them, and I'm going to sit down and have conversations, and we're going to talk about this. So I had to do that. So I went and I dug around and I asked some people and got the numbers of the revenue that we were giving away to the outside party, right? And then went and spoke to my GM and then to the CEO, said, this is the revenue that we are giving away. Would we like to give this away? Or would we like to actually, turn some of that into a profit for ourselves? So using the language of business to drive the maturity of design inside the organization with the relevant data for the organization, to arm yourself with that. And I remember drawing circles on the board to go, where are we now? Design maturity. What are those four levels of design maturity? Well, we've got level 4, which is obviously, I think, where you are, Rafael, where I was as well, where we outsource it, when we send it out, right? And we've got level 3, which is like, oh, it happens a little bit here in the digital team and a little bit there in the service design team, but that's it, no one else. And then we've got the level 2, where it's more embedded in the organization and it works across different departments, different silos, and we have it kind of worked into the business process. And then we have the level 1, I think, which is what you were referring to earlier when we were talking about this, Erika.
Yeah.
We were talking about strategic design, when design is actually something that looks at the strategic direction of the company, uncovers new value propositions, tests them, take them to market, everything else, et cetera, et cetera. That's the kind of level that we're aiming for. But I think that's a long journey. But if I were you, I would start at level 4, put the numbers together and say, this is the money that you're giving away. Do we want to change this?
Yeah, and I would just complete that with, I think I'm just going to summarize what what I felt from your intervention, Stefan. Like it's about passion and good arguments, of course. So you need to be very passionate and very resilient, because you're definitely gonna get a lot of no's and closed doors and etc. But you just cannot give up just like that. That's, you know, if you want to be, if you want to have a design mindset, you need to be resilient, which we need to do anyhow, because you're always facing the unknown. So yeah, a lot of resilience and persistence and passion and good arguments.
Okay. And I think you're really lucky as well, because, you know, the data is in your favor. If you go and dig a little bit, I remember taking the case study that I ended up taking them was to go IBM. What was IBM doing? Because they had an enterprise technology company, right? And had turned into a design-led company. So we could apply it to that use case. But you can go and dig in the new McKinsey report that's just come out. You must have read that as well, Maria, the redesigning the design department. Do you remember that one that came out? Fantastic information in there, right? Data around how design actually drives different changes in the organization. And you can find this all over the place too. So you've got the numbers on your side. So now you've just got to find the narrative and the relevance, and you're off.
Yeah. And just a little added thing there, I would say one of the things that really works really well is just having something concrete that you can show. Like if you don't even have a budget to do it, you know, just manage to do something even as small as possible that has a concrete effect. Even if it's small, a concrete something to show, that always works well.
Absolutely. Sorry, just 1 second before you jump there, Eriko. I think one thing also I wanted to add, just in summary, that design maturity, I think what we're really looking for, sort of having a think about it earlier, what are those conditions? What is a successful design culture established through? And I think there's that 3 stuff, and we've touched on them now. One of them is that leadership support. We were talking about that. When you have the conversation, to have that leadership support, people from the top down, they need to be visible, it needs to be committed. There needs to be some sort of vision around that, right? Leadership support, because otherwise I think, as Maria has said, it's really, really difficult to continuously be pushing, fighting for your survival. I think the other thing is that structural support as well, right? Having teams, having processes in place, understanding where does design feed in, the resources and around that. And then I think the last thing as well is just the talent support, you know, making sure that you have an organization that actually cares about the people that work in the design. What do they need to grow? What sort of diverse work and challenges can it supply to them? So I think, yeah, the leaders, the structure and the talent are really, really important in actually building successful design culture.
That's a pretty good one, Stefan. Yeah, so this just gives us a hook to the number 3, processes and engagement in low design maturity environment. So how to engage teams and leader with low design maturity, or what are some tangible processes that you guys maybe created when you were only you in the house as a designer, like Stefan just pointed over there. But Maria Camacho, have you come to this as well, like you jump in with just yourself or another person, and then you need to create your processes to engagement through the business and do everything, you know, to start to, I guess we need to map, you know, when we map, we start to know what location, like Stefan was doing his masterclass at the Design Leadership Season 2, I remember that very well. So the mapping is how we can map, and that can bring you metrics. Yeah. So how was that for you, Maria Camacho?
Yeah, many times been in that kind of situation. I would say, so I'm just going to be a little bit repetitive first. So again, persistence, but I'm going to add persuasion. Well, with good arguments and persistence and passion, you might get very persuasive. So yeah, that's a big part of it. But there are definitely a lot of things that you can put into practice that are studied and in books and etc. and practiced by organizations since 30, 40 years ago. I think pretty much it's quite established that, you know, you have different levels of maturity. And of course, you know, you cannot get from 0 to 100 to the best level of maturity if you don't start from the beginning. So of course, you would need to start by the first step. If you have a very low design maturity, it might mean that there's no designers, but somebody must have believed in it or thought they could believe in it since you're there for some reason. Yeah. So somebody called you there. So you gotta grab that, stick to that intention and get yourself going. You first, as Stefan said, he was the one person department at some point, and that definitely is the case often. And you will need to have many, to be the person that acts as many kinds of hands. And then you little by little with some persuasion and you can convince your boss of, okay, we need someone else, or we need to outsource to this kind of company, this thing, depending on the kind of situation. And then you start to grow, and little by little, once the people that manage the strategic side of the organization start to see results, as I was saying just earlier, even a little result, like a little concrete one, just one great digital design of, I don't know, just one little piece here that managed to get 100 more users happy, then that's, if you can prove it, you can measure it, if you can show it, and it's even a little thing, then okay, now let's get to the second step, and then let's go to the third and the fourth, and then you're going to start to build a team, either an internal team or an external team, and you're going to start to organize your design function within the organization to eventually become a strategic function within the organization.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a really powerful point. In terms of finding projects where you can show, right? Because you do some of the telling, you communicate exactly what you've just said, Maria. You communicate and you tell and you talk about it. There are books, there are methodologies, you have your teams, but then there's the show part, which is those little projects, things where you can actually show it in practice and the difference that it makes and the impact that it has. I think a while ago we were working on a project which was, I think, one of my favorite projects ever, but it was in the same technology company, and it was the first time that we'd used the sort of HCD process, I think, there, and it was for the firefighters in New Zealand, and it was to build the emergency response app on a national level, right? So how they sort of like Uber, but for fires. How do they go from where they are at the moment, which is often in remote locations, to where the fire is, right? And we had to build this out as a system. But now you can imagine, if you're working in a technology company in the capital somewhere in Wellington, that idea of what it's like to be in a fire station, to be in an emergency, is a very distant idea. So that was one of the things, we had to do in terms of the process and the engagement, was to go, right, let's get all 16 of our developers together, let's get our BAs, let's get our testers, let's get the client, everyone else, and we go to a fire station. And we do that step of, the process of actually taking people out of the office and doing something with them, placing them. Thankfully, while we were on that trip, actually, interesting side note is that a massive chemical fire broke out. And so while we had the 16 developers standing in the fire station, the alarm bell started ringing and people started running around with axes, and there was absolute chaos. And you could see all of them going, oh, right, now we understand why it needs to be a one click to reply and responding to the emergency button. So anyway, so I think there are actually things that you can do within that work really, really well in terms of processes that you can put in place. Let's get out of the building. Let's get proximity to users. Let's work together as a team. So I think those are the small steps that you can put in place. I think figuring out how design fits into that broader flow as well, so that we can have the upstream conversations about it, being a strategic process that you engage with early on. Not down the line when it's only in the delivery side of things. I think that's super important as well. And then I think, there is a real power in defining methodologies and ways to do things as well for an organization. There's something that I think recently rediscovered is once you create a way of doing something for an organization and you put a name on it and you put a label on it and you've co-created it with people over time, I feel like that has some power because it's a thing. It's something that we own. It's a way that we can do something that's maybe different from someone else. So I think Yeah, I think those sort of spaces, you know, what we said earlier about treating teams and leaders like your favorite clients and working with them, evangelizing, showing and telling, going on that journey together, you know, as we go out and we do things, and then defining ways of doing things that's co-created and that we essentially commit to together. I think those are powerful ways of lifting design maturity.
Yes.
We've got a,
yes.
sorry,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
No, yeah. Just yes. You got it.
I was just gonna. You were telling the fire station story, and I just remembered one. I'm going to try to make a long story short, but like one of the examples that I would call, and which shows that there's no just one way to do it. It's you need to be like very attentively creative all the time to see how you involve and how you get this going. But at some point, I was working as a consultant for a bank back in Colombia, in my home country, and and I was working from a university as an academic consultant, and I was also managing a design thinking course that was international together with Stanford University, and I was doing the two things separately, and I was just trying to get the business of the consultancy going for the bank, which was to embed a design innovation culture within the organization. And it just happened that when we finally got the get-go from the whoever needed the president of the bank or whoever needed to give the get-go for a project, which was to train by doing a project various people from the bank. The course was starting, and so I thought, what if we put together the students with the people from the bank that are going to come and that are going to be trained, and we get them to work together on a project. And then it just happened that, okay, one thing led to another, and then it ended up being that 8 mid-level executives from the bank ended up going for 9 months to the innovation lab of the university, take their ties off, just, you know, a different environment completely, and work on a design innovation project, on various design innovation projects for 9 months. And then I have to say, the president of the bank didn't believe in having innovation or investing in innovation at all in the organization. This was other levels that, you know, managed to get the funding from their own little areas. And they did this. And then at the end of the year, well, or various times during the year, but also at the end of the year, we made an exhibition of all the prototypes, working prototypes of the different ideas that functional prototypes of potential projects that the bank could work on, continue to work on. And the president was absolutely in awe, and he then and there decided to keep investing forever in innovation and created the innovation department with a budget. And
that's a really good one, Maria Camacho, and I'm gonna get on that. So if you have your design maturity, already funded, and you know how many times you are allowed to fail, means that you are mature enough to design. So for example, design teams are allowed to fail in 3 sprints, all right? Because that's when you foster the innovation, because you need to fail. You can't expect everyone to just do it right in every sprint or whatever. They need to have a gap, a fund, probably, ideally, so they can fail. So are we allowed to fail with one feature or something like in 1 sprint or whatever? So that's what I'm saying. So when people get into that, means that they are doing the next step on the design maturity. What do you reckon? Is that clear? Makes sense?
Yeah. Personally, my first reaction is I wouldn't systematize it that way.
Innovation funding, where you can fail.
I mean, we have to definitely have that acceptance, definitely. I would never say you can fail 3 times or 2 or 1 or 20 or 50. It depends. It's just, you can fail. And it depends on the kind of process. Of course, it depends on the amount of money that you have, the budget that you have, the time that you have. What were you meant to achieve? How much can you really fail? Like there are a lot of variables, I would say, that sort of, will put the surrounding limits as to how much. But I would personally, I would never say you can fail 3 times or you can fail 3 sprints. Because sometimes, you can be failing in the first one, and then you complete the whole thing in the next 3. And if you say you have 3 sprints of time, when are you going to fail? At the beginning, at the end, in the middle? It depends. It depends on the complexity of the project. It depends how it goes.
That's
if
exactly
you're following
right.
all the processes with all the right mindsets, it'll just take you. And you need to start to find out where to take the inflection points. Where should I go back? Where should I go forwards? Where should I turn right? Where should I turn left? That's how I see it.
Thank you, guys. This was my 2 cents on the conversation.
I think that's a great. That's actually a really great point, Maria. I think in terms of when we're thinking about, so I have to say I have a lot of. Obviously, I have a lot of love for design and for design thinking, and I love the processes and I love the methodology. I've always really been into that. But I think we've sort of done ourselves a little bit of a disservice, I think, in that regard, where we've tried to essentially productize and sell portions of time in which certain things happen in a certain sequence when it comes to innovation, right? We can discover, define, design, and deliver, boom, guaranteed, in and out. This is where we fail, this is where we succeed, this is where we test, etc. And I feel like it's so much more unpredictable where you will find out what the sequence in which it will happen. And I know it's, in theory, everyone says, oh, well, you can move around and you can turn. And as you said, when you go left, when you go right, and you kind of have to feel your way through it. But the truth is that when we sell these internally to our own organizations, I think, or to clients, we do default to selling it like a package, right? This is how it happens. This is how long it's going to take. It'll take us 6 sprints, and then you have 20 prototypes, and people have tested them. And I think that's a bit of it's a bit of a point where we could probably do better, I think, in the design world. And I think this is sort of connected to kind of design maturity in a way, right? We also need to have the maturity to say where the areas for own improvement, to sort of be self-reflective a little bit. So I think, that's definitely one of them is the way in which we go about it. It's not as simple as that. It's not as productized as that. It looks great on an accountant spreadsheet or on an operational plan or a timeline, but that's not the reality of it always, right? And I think there's something else, which I'm going to say, and this is a little bit contentious. It's a point of view that I have, so I have to put a warning label on it because I know that I might be stepping on some toes. But I also feel like, we were talking about the maturity of different things and how we grow up, right? And we see things differently. And I wonder, there's a question in terms of where we are at the moment, where we look at design as being HCD, human-centered design, whether we have not in some ways come to a place where we need to grow beyond that. Because I can see in my children, I have 9-year-old twins. And I remember when they're 3 years old, 4 years old, they are the center of the universe, right? Everything revolves around them. And then they start growing up, and then they start thinking about the feelings of their friends and some other people that they love. And then it starts getting bigger and bigger, right? And that circle kind of expands. And I think as we get to like Gandhi level, you sort of look at the entire universe as being a part of you, right? And that's what you care about. But so I wonder if we're not in HCD, human-centered design, if that's not a very, in some ways, immature and potentially egocentric way of looking at what we do. And where then there shouldn't be a space to go beyond that, to say, what else? Is it life-centered design? Is it environmentally centered design?
That's the fire going,
Yeah.
fire going. I can see the PhD inside Maria Camacho coming.
Yeah, it's a question. So I don't know. I'll be very, very interested to hear your opinion on this. Well, both of yours actually, and anyone else in the chat, please jump in.
I agree 100%, Stefan. And one of the things that I uncovered with my PhD thesis and that I've become like very passionately an advocate for is that design thinking, or whatever you want to call it, this thing, it's about being human-centered is one of the aspects, being human-centered. The second principle or aspect, main core aspect of design thinking is that it's about creating, it's about creation. So all the creativity aspects. And then the third aspect, it's that it's a systemic practice. It's a practice that you cannot practice without considering everything that's in the context, in the faraway context, in the close context, especially nowadays when we as humans, we know the effect that we can have with one little action here, we can have an effect that replicates to the future for many generations and into our environment, etc. So it's the way it has to be. We have to think systemically, also because when you say human-centered, it's not just the user, it's all stakeholders, it's all the people that are going to be affected one way or another, but by whatever you're designing. It's not just that person. Yeah, I can do something that is really effective for people to pressing that specific button, the atomic bomb button, for example. But is that it? You know, or what is it? What's the context? Do you really want that to work well? Why? You know, for who? For one? You know. So yeah, agree.
Okay, that's awesome. This was a really good one, Maria Camacho. Thank you very much, Stefan. Yeah, it's spot on. Yeah. What is design? This is, we need to define design before you define the maturity. Probably that's what I'm hearing here. Yeah, because we don't know. I mean, how we can define design. Yeah, it's a philosophy. It's design. How design is manifested through wisdom. Yeah, and how and this whole thing about growth. Yeah, we need to learn to growth, and to growth. That's exactly. I think like the growth is the layer that you can get more insights to measure maturity. Probably how we're growing, how we're going there, and how we going. What journey, what hero journey are we into it? Yeah, Stefan. It's for those that doesn't know, Stefan is a walking library on those matters. But yeah.
It was a fun session, Erika. We're going to do another one.
Yes.
We had some fun in the futures design session. We'll do another one with a bit more time.
That's right. Another one is coming with you too. That's right, Maria Camacho.
What was that? Sorry.
Are we doing regional tracks as well this year, right?
Oh well, what? Yeah.
We are. Okay. So the process engagement in design maturity environments. That's great, guys. And so we do have another point here, which is, what does it mean to be a design leader? But I'm gonna get this more into, maybe like ask you guys to maybe go through your road. So, and they are very different, I know that for sure. So Stefan, and I'm a bit suspicious because I love the space in design that you play, which is future thinking, future design, and this whole thing is about storytelling. So what does it mean for you to be a design leader in that space, and how you see others, and how you see the maturity of your space evolving? Where your radar it's actually like pointing into it, and you're getting more, curious about it.
This is Erika, you were really kind, and you sent us the 4 questions in advance that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I got to this one, to number 4, and I thought, wow, this is the hardest question of all of them. What does it mean to be a design leader? And the honest truth is, I don't know. I don't know what it means, because I feel like I am so early in this journey myself. that I don't yet have an answer for that. You know, I feel like we quite, and I blame digital, and I blame metrics, and I blame capitalism, and I blame everything else around it. But we're so focused on the short term and what does it mean and how do I measure it, that I feel like maybe we just need to give some time to develop some things, right? We need to give ourselves time to develop. So I feel like I need to give myself time to develop, because I am in the very, very early stages of my personal journey around design leadership. That's the honest truth. I have like two broad things that I think that is really, really important for any kind of leadership, which is just my idea around it, which is really not my idea, but an idea, which is that you need to know two things. You need to know yourself, and you need to know your environment around you, your context, right? I think those are the two things. So knowing yourself, really self-awareness. Philosophy, they talk about ontology, right? Your ontology, your self-awareness. Who am I? I think that's super important for a leader. And there are many, many ways in which you can do this, as you know, as we know. And then the other thing is inside your environment, your epistemology, right? The domain in which you operate, knowledge, understanding, hopefully one day maybe some wisdom, what's going on around you. I think connecting those two, that's where your leadership emerges, between knowing yourself and knowing where you are and what's going on around you. Yeah, so I think that's in this, I guess, the shorthand for design leadership. In terms of interesting spaces, before I hand over to Maria, I think in terms of interesting spaces, wow, I mean, I'm really on the futures design journey at the moment. I think that it's got incredible potential as things get more and more complex, volatile, exponential in terms of how quickly they develop. I feel like personally for me, the futures design pulls together so many strands of things that are really, really interesting. We have creativity in terms of envisioning new worlds. We have design in terms of how we can bring them to life. We have storytelling, we have narrative, we have the hard data and the quantitative that we need to pull in terms of forecasting, strategic thinking, how we're going to get there, how we're going to roadmap our way back. And then we've got all the other things that need to happen around it in terms of government, socio-political forces, you know, governance, publics, society, everything, the whole steeple, science, technology, environmental, economic, political, legal systems around it that we need to figure out, you know. So I think futures design is maturing, and it's finding its place, and it's got a really, really, really solid value proposition for where we are now.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell.
Amazing. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you. Appreciate it. Inspiring.
Great, Stefan. Like, there's so many things that I would like to talk about regarding what you just said, but they're not related to the question necessarily. So I'm gonna
let's do another fire session.
You're gonna have to do another part two. But one thing that's funny is that I mean, Stefan said I really don't know, and it's, you know, I studied a master in design leadership. That was the name of the master many moons ago, many. At its time, it was like a revolutionary kind of thing. It was within what we called at that time design management, but the master was called design leadership, and we had no idea what we were studying really. All I knew was that I wanted to you know, to have design, allow design to have value in organizations. So yes, it's been a long time since we've been questioning ourselves with what does it mean to be a design leader. One good example that I could say that could give a little bit of a concrete answer would be somebody called Raymond Turner, who is the author of a book called Design Leadership, and many others. And he, coincidentally, he was, he's English, and he was in the UK when I was studying my master course there. And he got to be the one of the evaluators of my master's thesis. And he gave us a class on design management because he was the leader for design at London Transport at that time. And London's Transport has become very well known for the way it's managed, the overall design of everything, of all of the different manifestations that it has.
Is the design lead for 3M?
Sorry?
Aaron is the design lead. He was at 3M, I think. Something like
I'm
that.
not sure. I mean,
Okay.
he could have. I don't think
Because
so.
Eric Queen.
But
I think that was Eric
Raymond
Queen. Oh, no, okay,
Raymond
that's fine. That's fine, Maria Camacho. Sorry, I was just thinking about that was another guy that was on design leadership as well.
Okay, this one, the book is Design Leadership, and that's actually a book that tells you about design leadership at the operational level and at the strategic leadership level. I think it's a really, really good book for those who want to get a little bit more into the concreteness and the theory that has evolved from design management towards how to lead design at an operational level and at a strategic level in organizations.
Wow, amazing, amazing. How good was that? Woo! We nailed it, guys. So thank you so much. Thank you, Stefan, for coming to tonight here in Perth. We're in Perth, Western Australia. Rainy, a bit cold here today. Thanks, Stefan, in New Zealand. Maria Camacho, you in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's right, Melbourne. Guys, what a great discussion we have today. Thank you so much for coming to the Fire Sessions. If you're watching that and you have any comments about the topic that we're discussing today, just leave it on the comments. We're going to get back to you. And don't forget, 10th of October to 14th of December, Global Masterclasses, 9 a.m. from Design Leadership Season 3 in local workshops on Wednesdays on the following region. I think, so housekeeping here. Design Leadership Season 3, we have the early bird prices until August, 30% off. Woo, 30% off.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Get it.
Do we have any questions from our beautiful people that's on the chat now? No, not really. Marco? Larry?
There have been some great comments that have come through. I think Marco was mentioning about his time at FNB Bank in South Africa.
Yeah.
That was really, really interesting.
Well,
co-creation being super powerful.
That keeps us to the
end. Oh, there's
my
friend Larry. Oh, that was very nice. He's in there too. Satvik. Yeah, great. Fantastic. Hey, Maria, I think now that I know you're in Melbourne, I think we should continue this conversation, but maybe over a cup of coffee when I come over to Australia again.
Yeah, definitely. And I still have never been to New Zealand, so that might be a surprise. Yeah.
You should come. It's fantastic. Don't come to Wellington to come visit us. Or we'll just need to find a nice gap when the wind isn't howling and there are no earthquakes. And
it needs to be less cold.
Guys, good to be with you tonight, and I'm sure that we're gonna cross our paths soon on the design leadership journey. Thank you very much. And
thank you, everyone.
See you guys.
It's been a
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Maria. I really enjoyed that. Thank you for hosting us, Eric.
Ciao.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Bye.